Salam everyone, Dilshad here again. We're here for part 2 of our fantastic discussion on marriage and relationships. Thanks for joining us again. Let's talk about what sustains our marriages. I want to talk about whether you've been together less than a year or more than 25 years. What sustains a marriage early on and later on? Is it the same things? Does it change over time? Melanie, how about for you?
I was like, don't ask me.
Taking it to you, Mel.
This is actually the hardest year of marriage I've been in to date.
Yeah.
How many years now?
10.
Yeah, that's about right.
10th year?
That's about right. That's about right. 10 is hard.
What happens at 10?
You hate them.
I hate year 10.
You hate year 10 because your life continually shifts. And that's the thing. I write romance and everyone has a happily ever after, but in honesty, there's happily ever for now. There's not happily ever after. Because life shifts and it changes.
Yes.
And a very close friend of mine said, you're going to want to kill him every 5 years. That's what she said to me. And she was so right. Because every 5 years, it's just like I have to reassess exactly what is happening in this relationship, where this relationship is going, can I stand this person anymore?
Yes, yes.
And what will my life be like without this person?
Yes.
And you both
I have
do
to
it.
ask all those
He's
questions.
asking those questions too.
Yeah.
He's asking those questions too.
That's comforting to
Because,
know.
because you're close, you're close, you're building this life together, and a lot of things are happening and you're reacting and responding to them, and sometimes it's good and sometimes you don't like his responses, sometimes he doesn't like your responses, and that kind of plays on to, what you thought was cute 5 years ago is not cute anymore. I married a procrastinator and I've had to adjust to the fact that he's a procrastinator because sometimes I just want to strangle him because of that procrastination. So it happens. 10 years is just about that time when you're like, you know what, if I had killed him, I'd be out by now. Now, the good thing is that if you have a healthy relationship, it will survive those pitfalls. It will survive them. And he'll do something or say something, and you'll realize y'all keep him for a little while longer.
For the next 5 years until you.
And for him too. No, definitely for him too.
Yeah.
You ask those questions as a couple. You constantly ask those questions. And I mean, there'll come times where you just really are like, do I like this person?
Mm-hmm.
Do I really just I love him. I love her. But do I like them?
Well, that is so good, Layla, so good, because that's what it's been about for me also. Because as you say, we all change over the course of our marriage. We start out as these types of people, and then we become this type of person and that type of person, and you actively choose to be with each other over and over, and I still choose to be with you. I still choose to be with you. I choose to be with this version of you, right? And it's exactly that. I love him. I'm always going to love him. But there were times when I know that he didn't like me very much, or I didn't like him very much, because we were going through different stages in life.
I think that what makes this complex is my husband and I work together.
Yes.
So we co-founded a company and we run it together as leaders. I am technically the CEO, and that doesn't bother him that he's the COO. We're equal, and it doesn't bother him, but the line between my co-founder and my husband, it's very fluid, and so I think that's what's caused the most strain in year 10. Not to say that there were things outside of that we really, really needed to face head on, because it was building and building for 10 years, and then one day I was like, who the are you? And who are you? What is this?
What's happened here?
What is this?
Yeah.
And I think for so long, I had let things go that at year 10, I was like, I'm not gonna let this go anymore.
And that's really hard, because sometimes your spouse doesn't see that coming. And we have chosen to do this on our own. These are things we do together. These are things you do. These are things I do. And I'm having trouble doing my stuff now. I can't do this on my own anymore. So I have a son who's autistic. And I have taken the lead in everything when it comes to him, because somebody has to. So everything, his IEPs, his education, his therapies, his doctors, I take the lead. And I try not to, he's very involved, but at the same time, I try not to say too much to him, because he's carrying a lot himself. a lot that I need him to carry. But then I came to a point where I'm like, I can't carry this alone anymore. I can't. And I was more emotional, and I was more needy, and I was more all over the place, and that was hard for him too, because he was not used to that version of me.
Yeah.
You know, I changed on him.
Yeah.
And I was like, you gotta stay with me on this. Stay with me on this, you know? It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. And I think it's the same when you've been married 7 years or year and a half, right? You change and you grow together all the time. I mean, is this right, Mona? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, as you guys, when you first asked the question, the first two things that popped in my head were compromise and learning the other person's love language. If you don't know what the other person loves or appreciates, it's really hard to sustain the marriage, I feel.
Yes.
So clearly, like, you would appreciate help in that scenario. That's like your love language at that moment. So that's why it was important to you, and that's why just now, obviously the first year is learning the other person's love language and making sure that, you know, you understand, like for you might appreciate this, but I don't appreciate, like, that's not my love language. So learning the other person's love language. And obviously the first year is all about compromise, because it's like you're coming from two completely different backgrounds, two completely different, like, you know, you were brought up differently, two different households, and then coming together and being like, okay, this is the way I like things done, so let's do it this way, but I like it done this way. So yeah.
Like what I sought out in the beginning is different than what I see done now. Like I find myself being more needy for active gestures of romance now than I ever did in my first 10 years. And maybe it's because, you know, I had kids quickly and it was all about the kids, and now that they're a little bit older, we can look at each other again. And he said, you know, I love you. I said, yeah, but I need the words.
I need to see it.
I need the words, you know? You're not a guy you're not a wordy guy. I'm a wordy girl. I need the words. And so, you know, it's learning and relearning that.
I think my husband and I, we got married really young. Like, really young. Like, we actually had a moment where we looked at each other and we were like, what were we thinking? We got married young. Like, how did that we love each other? But, like, we were babies. Like, I was 20, he was 22.
Wow. You were babies.
Really young?
I
was 20.
Okay, well,
you were babies too.
But I feel like when you get married, I don't know if you agree with me, but when you get married at that age, your 20s in general, you change so much and like you learn so much, and so we both grew up together.
Yeah.
And like change came together, and then you know, I feel like everyone touched upon like all the big points, but I feel like even down to things like, what do you like to do for fun? Like, how are you guys friends? What do you do that you're gonna do together and have fun and like have a friendship? Because if you don't have a friendship, the romance is gonna die eventually.
Yes.
This is the way, you know what I'm saying? Like there has to be something. And so I feel like the hard parts in my marriage were the parts where it was like, we weren't vibing, we weren't connecting.
Yes.
Right? It's like we were just cohabitating.
What do you do if you and your spouse are not on similar footing on big issues? Like maybe money practices or parenting techniques or how you practice your faith. It's a big one in my life. How do you come together? Like how do you guys tackle that? Anyone want to take it?
Wow.
Well, over the 28 years, there have been a lot of big issues.
Yes.
and some of them, like Melanie said, years go by, you really don't resolve them. You want to just be and exist.
Yeah.
And some things you just hit an impasse, and you just kind of leave that alone. And a lot of times, what happens, especially in a committed relationship, is that it's very easy to just put it to the side.
Yes.
So it's like, you know what? I don't like when you do. I don't like that. And you're arguing, and then you're mad, and you break up, and then he comes and says, "You want to eat? Yeah, I can eat."
Because you have to eat.
You want to eat? Yeah, I can eat. And so then you just kind of like, I'll leave that alone because I'm just going to enjoy this meal and just forget it.
Yeah.
You know, and so we've had to deal with a lot, whether it came when it came to our children, or just things in our marriage. My husband did not grow up with any sisters. Okay, he's one of two boys.
Okay.
And his mother dotes on her sons. Okay. He's a very self-sufficient man, but he does not, even in 20 years of marriage and being married to me, I think he still does not get women. And so that's one of the things that I've always had to contend with, is that if these big issues happen, there are certain things that I need for him to do, and it's sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. And when he's not great, what do I do at that point? Because sometimes it's like, we need to talk about this. Hold on a second, I got the baby over here. We need to talk about this. Oh, hold on, the doctor just called and diagnosed our daughter.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yes.
So it's just like, when you come to those big issues, how are you gonna, if you're gonna address them at that moment, okay? A lot of people feel like, oh, don't go to bed angry. That's such a lie. An year and a half, you won't be married at all.
Angry last night.
You're gonna go to bed bad. Okay, you're gonna go to bed mad. You're gonna go to sleep with stuff unresolved, and you're still gonna love each other.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
I agree.
And so it's just like, when you get to that point where it's just like, we're ready, let's sit down and let's talk to each other. If that never happens, then there's some serious dysfunction that you have to contend with.
Yeah.
But ultimately, whether it takes a month, 5 years, 10 years, or something like that, that you get fed up and you're like, listen, we're really gonna address this issue, I'm sick of this, okay? Then you have those honest conversations.
When we leave things alone, sometimes they build up.
Right.
Yes.
But then also, sometimes we just don't have the time to talk about it when we need to talk about it. This has happened in my marriage where things have just built up over time and then they become a big thing.
Yeah.
And it would have been better if we talked about it earlier. And but it was not possible.
Maybe not. Maybe not. Because sometimes when you're in that moment, there's a lot of tension already there.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Okay? And you don't know what your responses are going to be at that time.
True.
Okay? Those really stressful, tense moments, you can say a lot of stuff
That's hurtful.
That you can
that's
never take
very
back.
hurtful that you can never take back.
This is true.
Yeah, I have a policy that I always talk about it. Like, when I'm angry, I don't want to talk to you at that moment. Let me cool down and process my thoughts, and then we can talk when we're both calm. Because I don't want to say anything that I'll regret and that I can never take back and that you'll never forget. And I don't want you to say something that I'll never forget. So let's just stay in separate rooms for a sec.
This
Let
is
me-
good.
Let me cool down, and then we'll talk. And if it's still really tense, which happens a lot, I'll be like, you go on your phone, write it down, and I'll go on my phone and write it down. And then we like text it to each other. But at least we both like proofread what we're saying, make sure it's not hurtful before we send it to the other person.
Wow.
And
I love that.
Why did I not know this 20 years ago? I would have saved myself a lot of heartache.
Said a lot of things. Said a lot of things. Said a lot of things I can't take back.
Yeah.
I said a ton of stuff I
I'm
can't
not
take back.
saying we haven't, but you know, I
A
try my
ton.
best to go that route for sure.
For me, the problem isn't that we've said a lot of things, is that we haven't said a lot of things. There were so many things that have been unsaid between my husband and myself over the years because of what you said, where, hold on, let me grab the baby. Hold on, I gotta take this call from the teacher. Hold on, your mother needs to go to the doctor, right? And so many things were unsaid over the years, and that's what started to like the festering or the I need to get this off my chest. So that's been my challenge, has been to actually speak.
Yeah.
Which is funny, right? I'm the blog editor. Words are my life. But my challenge is to speak my heart to my husband.
Well, that's a lot of emotion too. And
Yeah.
if it's pent-up emotion, it gets very hard to control how it is you're going to lay it in on him, because that's sometimes the way that they process it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like, oh, I thought we were okay. I thought we were cool.
Yes.
Where did all of this come from? What happened here? You know, I still remember one time where all I had to say to my husband was, I'm not happy. He never heard me say that before. He'd heard me say I was angry.
Yeah.
He'd heard me say I was tired.
Yeah.
He said I got fed up, frustrated. But the idea, that gave him pause. He just like put the brakes on everything.
You can't be
When I
defensive when you say that.
Yeah.
I'm not happy.
Right.
And so fortunately he was like, okay, what do we need to do? You know, because that becomes important. All right. And he said it to me, you know, I'm not happy right now. I love you, but I'm not happy. And so what is going on in our lives at that point that we're not happy at that point? And so what is it that we need to do? Sometimes it's shutting the world out. sometimes it's realizing it's those 6 kids that we have.
Or the 3.
Or the 3. Sometimes you gotta just be like, nah.
Or the business.
Y'all gotta go over here. Or the business, or the community,
Yeah.
or a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
Or and sometimes you recognize it in each other, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like, my husband's like, you need to lighten up on all the stuff that you're doing, because I work hard and I just want my wife happy, and I've done all of this stuff to make this house happy, and you're out there doing this and this and this and that and that.
And it's
That's not making you happy.
Yeah.
And I had to sit back and think, I'm like, oh, you know what, he's right. I think one of the things is that men will go on autopilot in their lives, and if you're not saying anything to them, it's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay?
They don't read signs.
They don't read signs.
They don't read
And they
signs.
don't even read the signs in themselves, because everything in life, all the messages they received about being a man is to actually just go, suck it up, do what you gotta do, and that's it. And so if you're not saying anything, okay, if you're not that squeaky wheel that's kind of letting him know, I need you to do this, I need you to do that, this is how I'm feeling, he's just gonna keep on going. So if it's been 10 years, it's because he's been going and you haven't been saying, which is fine, because like I said, sometimes that's not the point in your life, because remember, you're sharing your lives together. So not every situation has to be addressed like right at that second.
It can't be.
It can't
It
be.
just can't be, right?
You know what's a really good book for this?
Yes.
Brené Brown, Rising Strong is a Spiritual Practice. I've been listening to her audiobook. I was actually listening to it on the way here. It's really good with that because she talks about at one point like drawing boundaries and how you have to do them or else you're going to build a lot of resentment. And so maybe it's that you don't sit there and like have this fight right now because you don't have the time, but you just draw that boundary and you're like, look, I can't, no. Like we can't do this right now, or like I don't accept this and we can talk about it later, but like no. You draw that line, and once you make that clear, you're not gonna build that resentment, and so you're not gonna look at him like you hate him and like treat him like that. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're upset.
Yeah.
And then another thing that she said that was really cool, it's kind of like what Winna does, where it's like before you say anything, even if it's just to yourself, like whatever you're feeling, write it down first, because sometimes it's legitimate and sometimes it's so stupid, and when you see it in front of you, you're like, oh.
So I do this in the notes of my phone. Like if someone looks through the notes in my phone, I mean I'll delete them as time passes, but there's like all these notes about when you said that, I felt like this, and you didn't do this and I didn't do that, and then like a day or two later I look at it, I'm like, okay, where was my fault in this? Let's acknowledge that as well before I come off on him. So, but it took me a while to figure that out, and I really admire Mona, how this is something that you guys have come to understand with each other early. But I think this is, I think this is more indicative of women and men getting married now. You know, inshallah. I hope.
No, it's your background. It's Mona's background.
She does have a psychology
That's true.
background.
I have a psychology background, which has helped me a lot in the relationship, because I knew going into the marriage there's going to be a lot of arguing, there's going to be a lot of arguing, so I knew I was prepared for all of that, where I feel like sometimes that is caught off guard when there's like a lot of arguing. It's like, why are we arguing right now? And I'm like, this is normal, this is growing pains, like we need this. Yeah, this is good, because we need to have this argument to move past it and like grow from it. So I see them, you know,
Learning how to fight is big though.
Yeah.
And so I feel like you kind of hacked it, because it takes time to learn how to fight, and a lot of dramatic like. I'm still learning how to fight.
And I mean, that could be different. That
You
could
want
be
to
very,
say
very
something?
subjective.
No, I don't.
But learning how to fight can be very, very subjective. You know, people cannot think of marriage as this one solid thing. Everybody's marriage is different, okay? And even when you do say to your spouse, "This is what I need. This is not working right now. This is what I need for you to do." The biggest mistake that you can make, all right, women especially, is to think that you said it once, they got it, and then that's it. Okay, because you're dealing with a human being, okay, who have their own habits. Okay, so you're saying like, okay, all right, no, babe, I got it. It's cool. All right, so I won't do it anymore. 6 months later. You mean the next day? What the next day? What the next hour. But we have a tendency to kind of think of these things as absolute. And the longer you're married, the less absolute it is, because you're talking about a person who's not only changing, but also has these habits of dealing with things in a certain way. And even though you may tell them 4, 5, 6 times that is an issue and a problem for you, the reality is that they may not change. They may change that moment, but then they'll go back into the old habits again. And then you have to make a decision. Is this something that's really a deal breaker in this relationship? Sometimes it is. Is it something that isn't, you know? And the longer you're married, the more vested you're in the relationship.
Exactly, you have history.
You start to kind of like look at those things like, okay, yeah, and then you may adjust as well. But do not expect this miracle person to come out after you've had those discussions. In a healthy relationship, each one of you will want to fix whatever it is.
Yes.
Each one of you will want to make the adjustments to whatever it is, but each one of you will eventually go back to your old patterns and irritate each other.
Yes.
That's going to happen.
And I like how you said each one of you, because it's the same for me. Like, he will say things to me or suggest things that he would like me to do differently. I will forget 6 months later. I will. I need to be reminded of that. We all, I'm sure, as women and wives, we need to be reminded. They need to be reminded. Goes both ways.
But I guess that's why they say, like, your marriage runs on the work that you put into it. And so it's like you can't expect that love to be enough to sustain a marriage, because you can love someone and not be married to them, right? Like, you need to choose to be together every single day and actively. Yeah.
So 20 years, 18 months, 10 years, 28 years, 7 years, it's an active choice.
Yeah.
I think that's what I would say.
Yeah.
Y'all would agree?
I think so. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. Ladies, I thank you so much for doing this with me and for being open and willing to talk about this stuff. And Mona, Melanie, Layla, Noor, thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us for this discussion with these wonderful ladies. Remember to visit www.hautehijab.com, visit our blog, look at all the great hijabs that we have available for you, and subscribe to us right here. Hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to ring that bell so that you'll get notification when we have another great discussion. Salams.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.